Hello, in this tutorial we're going to have a look at faking a low-key lighting effect using Photoshop Elements 6. And low-key lighting is predominantly darker shadows and darker midtones as well. It's predominantly towards the left of a histogram. If we have a look, for example, at the histogram of our source file, you can see there's lots of shadow information for the black backdrop, and then she's very flat and mid-tone lit, this girl, so it's more like a high key lighting effect at the moment. There's not a lot of contrast around the shadows and the highlights of her face, but we can enhance that and then darken the midtones to create a shot that looks something like this. And you can see now that everything in the histogram has climbed to the left. We've got much darker shadows and much darker midtones as well. So I'll show you how to create a more striking, dramatic, low-key lighting effect if you want to add some drama and even danger or a sense of strength and purpose to a portrait. So let's start off with our source file, which you'll find on the cover disk, and that's called Low Key Start. And it is worth getting the histogram up so you can just have a quick look at the changes that you're making to the brightness. And we'll kick off by just duplicating the original file in case we need to access the color information from that at a later date. So here's our copied background now, dragged to the Create New Layer icon. Okay, let's start to enhance this shot by adjusting the contrast of the skin tones just to give a more definition and make her look less high key and less flat lit. So to do that, go to Adjust Color and we'll use Adjust Color Curves. Now, editing with curves can be quite tricky and it's easy to go over the top if you drag control points around, but luckily you can't even do that in this version anyway. You can just drag sliders or use styles. And we need to increase the midtone contrast here, so we could do that by pushing this to the right like so. And that's making very orange and posterized looking colors, but don't worry too much about that because we're going to create a monochrome version of this anyway. Now that's increasing contrast by dragging a slider, and you can see the shape of the curve. You could also of course tick the style here, which is increased midtones, and that will give you a fairly similar looking curve, but let's fine tune it to the individual needs of the photograph by using the manual sliders here. Once you've tweaked the midtone contrast, take the brightness down a little bit just to enhance the contrast between the midtones and the highlights. It gives you much more shape and modeling on the face, and we can then focus on taking down the levels of the face at the next stage. So when you've got a curve that looks similar to this, then click OK, and you've got a very dodgy looking color version of the shot. Don't worry about that, we're going to desaturate it in just a sec. So our next step is to lose the color information to create a striking monochrome print, and to do that let's go to an adjustment layer this time, and let's choose hue saturation, and very quickly just drag saturation down to the left to lose all of the color. Click OK, and there's your adjustment layer. Turn that on and off to see the before and after, and you can always of course double click to re-edit it if you need to. Now at this stage the shot is still fairly high key for the lighting on the girl's face, so we need to darken that up without losing the contrast, and we can actually enhance the contrast of the midtones even more using levels. So make sure you're on the top layer like so, then go to the adjustment layer option, go to levels, and here you'll see the shadows. There's hardly any midtone information there, there's a little bit kind of dipping down in the middle there, but we can darken the existing midtones by dragging the midtone slider to the right, and watch this, it's remapping those pixels and darkening them now, but it's not changing the darkest shadows or the brightest highlights. And now we've got more contrast between the shadows and the highlights like so. So something like this is giving us a bit more of a dramatic looking shot. It's very over the top in the sense that the blacks are far too black now. We're losing a lot of detail, but don't worry because we can fix that by using masks. So click OK, and here is the image as it looks so far. So at this stage the blacks are much too dark and you're not actually seeing any shadow detail. So let's just click on the mask, grab the brush tool, which you can get by pressing B, take a black foreground color, a large brush of about maybe 900 pixels, something like that should do the trick. Here we go. And once you've selected the mask, make sure you click and spray to reveal any hidden details you want to show, like her hair. And if you decide that you actually want to hide something, press X to swap the foreground color to white, and then you can gently just hide the corners there and create a kind of natural vignetting effect. So that has revealed the hair and basically made it less contrasty. And so let's just zoom in on the eyes, Control plus, And if you want to reveal some of the detail there, maybe they're just too dark. They're actually okay, not too bad. I'm just going to take the opacity down of the brush to about 10%, shrink the brush down, and then with a black brush, swap the foreground colour to black, just gently spray in, just to bring out some of the detail in the pupil there. Okay, so it's a little subtle edit, but that just draws more attention to the girl's face and also reveals the hidden hair.